happens. So if anybody misses this, they can catch the recording on there. And then I want you to know that I'm glad that Antonio's here. I'm really grateful for him and his time. He is somebody that I look up to and admire inside of what we'll talk about tonight, inside of buying real estate properties for beginners and buying out of state. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of worry about buying properties out of state. I can't see it. I can't touch it. I'm not there. Things like that. And he does an excellent job on that. But not only does he do an excellent job of teaching it, he's also does this himself. He's got multiple properties in different states, and he knows exactly the process to mitigate a lot of the things that can get in the way, a lot of the fears, a lot of the worries, and a lot of the risk that run this way. So I'm going to pass it over to Antonio, but like give him a virtual like round of applause or something, man. He's a stud. Antonio, I appreciate you doing this, man.
Yeah, you got it, guys. I'm glad to be here. Hope all of you are ready to learn a little bit about investing out of state. I made this just for you guys, just so you know. I haven't talked about this before. Well, I haven't given this information anywhere else. So basically, I designed this presentation assuming a few things. You want to buy real estate out of state or far away from where you are. You're going to buy a rental property, meaning like a long-term rental. You're getting a mortgage for a house, because I feel like most people would be getting a mortgage unless you're sitting on a lot of cash, and you're not going to be managing it or doing the repairs that you have. Can you guys see my presentation? Cool. All right. Thank you. And if you guys have any questions throughout the chat, feel free to put them in the chat, and if I have time towards the end, I'll be answering any of them, or if I see them along the way, I'll be answering them as many as I possibly can as I go along. All right. So let's get going here. So the first thing we got to do is pick a location based on data. Right. If you live in California, New York, or any of these places where property is super expensive, they don't make sense to buy, then where do you buy? That's the first question. So ultimately what we're trying to do is narrow it down to a city. Some people try to look at the state level, but the state level is way too broad, in my opinion. Some people try to find a neighborhood. In my opinion, that might be too hard without having visited the area. So I look at a city. City has enough data behind it to give all that information. So the reason why we need to use data is because it removes bias. When I was starting out, I would go to meetups and I would talk to real estate investors, and some of them would invest nearby because I was in New York City at the time. They'd all say, yeah, I invest here in Jersey, like 30 minutes away. And some people would say they were having a great time, and other people would say that they had a bad time, all based on their scenario. And then you would talk to another investor who said, yeah, I'm investing in Detroit. And he would say, yeah, that's Detroit's a great market to invest in. Then you talk to someone else and they say, Detroit's a terrible market to invest in. There's crime there, right? So who are you supposed to believe? This is why I get questions all the time like, oh, where should I invest? People ask me for like a straight up location. And I'm like, it depends on you and what you need, what you're looking for. And so the data will remove any bias. Okay. The data will tell you a story, but a story based on numbers, whereas everyone else is going to tell you a story based on their emotions. And that's what you need to realize. So what data specifically? The first thing we'll need is the crime, right? We don't want to invest somewhere in the middle of the hood. That's not where we want to invest. We want to invest in an area that's a C-class area. I'll give you guys an example. In real estate, we use A, B, C, D as the different classes of areas we would want to invest in. A being the richest neighborhoods with mansions, right? Those neighborhoods don't really work for an investor because the property prices are too high and the costs are too expensive. Okay, so most investors don't invest in A neighborhoods. B neighborhoods, on the other hand, are neighborhoods where people have 9-to-5 jobs, and there's very, 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 very little crime. But hold on one second. I have this weird camera that will zoom in on me, so you might see me waving at the screen a few times to stop it from doing it. A B area would be an area that, like I was saying, there's people 9-to-5 jobs, very, very little crime. It's a great place to live, but the property values are still a little bit higher. A C area is more like a lower income area, but not much crime at all, just lower income. There's plenty of those areas. And a D area would be an area where there's drugs and shootings all the times. We want to stay away from A and D and go more towards B and C areas. I like to stick towards C plus areas. I call them nicer C areas where there's still low income because the property prices seem to be lower without a lot of the negatives. So you can use a website called city-data.com, and you'll find the crime rate for every single city. This process alone could take you a couple hours, so I didn't want to just focus on this. I wanted to give you a high level of how the whole thing works from start to finish. The second data point would be unemployment rate. Unemployment rate is really important because you need people to have jobs. If they have jobs, they can pay you rent. If they can pay you rent, they will be able to stay in the property and you'll have low vacancy, right? That's all great things. Plus, that means a lot of businesses in the area, people want to move there. So you want low unemployment. You want a high population growth. If people are moving there, you have a higher demand. It makes sense.
Star 5. You don't like it.
Oops. You got him? Okay. Star Fox. Star Fox, I don't know about the population growth with Star Fox, but the next thing is the home price. Okay, so you want an area where the home prices are lower. The lower the home price, let me take one step back. The reason why we want low home prices, other than for the fact that it costs us less money to buy the house, is that the home price affects the mortgage price. Your mortgage price, there my camera goes, your mortgage price is the biggest expense you will have as a real estate investor. And so if you pick a cheaper home price, you are getting a lower expense of the biggest of all the expenses you have. So by optimizing for areas that have lower home prices, like I do, then you end up buying a property where your mortgage is lower and you actually have a chance of making more money. Now, it's not just the home price that matters, but also the rent price. We need rent prices to be higher. A lot of people are like, home price is low and rent price is high. That makes no sense. Well, it's really about the ratio between the two. And that's what the price to rent ratio is. The price to rent ratio is the ratio between the median home price in the area and the annual rents. The lower that number, the better, because that means we'll be collecting more rent and have lower mortgage. And like I said, the mortgage is the highest expense you have. And the rent is your income. So if we have more income and lower expenses, that's a good thing. Another expense to us as real estate investors is property taxes. So you want to look up the property tax rates in each area. You can use Smart Asset. They have a property tax calculator for every single city that'll give you the average property tax rate in that area. And then landlord friendliness. I have this map here that I refer to a lot. I'd say it's pretty accurate, except the map of the state of New York saying that it's landlord friendly. But certain states have laws that are more landlord friendly than others, meaning that the laws back up the landlord. So for example, in Arkansas, I can evict someone, I believe, in 3 days of non-payment of rent. In New Jersey, during COVID, I couldn't evict anyone until this year. Okay. Like 2020 was out the books. 2021, you couldn't do anything at all. 2022 was finally the year that you could. So that's a huge difference between the laws. And like I had one tenant in New Jersey who we're still trying to get money for. But it's almost 2023 now. And she has been on and off paying since June 2020. Okay. So there are consequences to investing in areas that aren't landlord friendly. Okay. So what you do for this process, and I know Donald, I already did this process for you, but you take each of these factors for all of the cities, okay, and you compare them. You compare them one by one, and you rank them, okay, and you give them a score. Based on the score, the ones with the lowest score is going to be the theoretical best city for you. All right, let me stop my camera from freaking out. it's going to be the theoretical best city for you. I have a problem because I talk with my hands too much, and the camera uses hand signals to determine what's going on the screen. So, so this is an intensive process, and I gave you a high-level overview, but I have plenty of other resources that can guide you a lot deeper in this process if you need it. Will asks, do each of the data points weigh the same, or do you weigh them differently in overall area scoring? That's actually a great point. So once I've taken all of the data and I looked at it, I will go back and I'll ask myself, okay, what are my goals? What's my specific situation? So if I'm someone that really struggles with having money for the down payment, right, then I'm going to look at the data and place a heavier emphasis on the home price, because the higher the home price, the harder it's going to be for me to get into that market and buy multiple houses in that market. It's going to be harder for me to scale if I'm someone with very little money. If I'm someone that doesn't really care about cash flow, but I care more about appreciation, then I might not care about the price to rent ratio as much, but I'll look more at the crime rates and the population growth and the unemployment rates and give more emphasis to those. So depending on what your goals are, you can tweak the data points or give more emphasis to things or less emphasis to things. So that's a really good question. Brown asks, what about using Section 8 housing? Section 8 housing doesn't really affect what we're talking about right this second. That is more of the type of tenant you end up selecting in the end. So it's not really something to worry about in this exact scenario when you're picking the location. But instead, you want to just, if you want to take Section 8 tenants, then that comes down to your tenant selection process. Nicole F., do you have a list of locations around the country you recommend? Nicole, like I said, I can tell you where I invest, but if you just listen to me, you'll be taking just my scenario and my story from what I've learned from investing in these areas. Instead, what I recommend is you do this process yourself. You learn what, and you keep your goals in mind, and you'll be able to find a better city than whatever I recommend to you at a high level. Okay. And it's really hard for me to just give out cities. So I invest in Akron, Ohio, just so you know, I'm not like holding information back. I invest in Akron, Ohio, Little Rock, Arkansas, Ewing and Hamilton, New Jersey, and Cape Coral, Florida. Now, those may work for you. Those may not work for you. It's really up to you, your budget, your goals. Are you okay with investing in these states, or do you like these areas? Some people think the areas that I'm investing in are the worst, like they're the hood. They'd never invest in Akron, Ohio. But I found really great areas in Akron, Ohio that I like. So I invest there. I would live in some of these areas, right? I'm okay with that. Some people are not. Some people want the really nice neighborhoods. That's okay with them. They just might not make as much money as I will. It's up to them. Okay. So this is step one. This is step one. I know this is probably the most in-depth step we'll go through, but we have 17 of them. So let's get moving. So the second step is to get pre-approved. So once you know what location you're going to go to, the next step is getting the actual pre-approval from a bank. So how many of you actually own a home already where you like live? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, cool. So we got a couple of you own a home. So you guys know what a pre-approval is. You don't need me to go too in depth of that. But if you're new, basically a pre-approval is just a piece of paper that says, I can afford this house. I can afford a house in this area up to this price. Okay. This is just a picture of a pre-approval I had for a property that I was looking at, house hack, while I was living in New York City. You're basically going to call up a bank and tell them that offers mortgages, and tell them your credit score, your job history, all that stuff. This is really the conventional loan process. That's what this whole outline was designed for. If you don't have a conventional job or whatever, feel free to ask, and we can try to go over some of those niche scenarios down the line. Basically, you get a piece of paper that says, I can buy a house. The reason why we need this is credibility for you to talk to anyone else in the real estate space. Okay. So real estate agents and everyone, this gives you credibility to buy a property. So they know you're not just screwing around. All right. Step 3 then is, once you have a pre-approval letter, you find an investor-friendly agent. And now, what do I mean by an investor-friendly agent? This is someone who understands what you're trying to do. They understand you. They understand your goals. It's a very different mindset to trying to buy a house to live in than buying a house to invest in. The person who's buying a house to live in says, I really love this home, or this home doesn't work for me. The investor says the numbers don't make sense. Okay. The numbers don't have emotions behind them. So you need to make sure that this investor understands what you mean by words like cash flow or words like return on investment. If they've never heard those words before, I would walk away. Another thing you want to make sure that they understand is that they respond relatively quickly. In certain types of markets where properties are flying off the market really quickly, which is we're not seeing as much anymore right now. You need to make sure that they're responsive, because a good property that comes on the market will be seen by other investors quickly. And if you're not paying attention, or if you don't respond quickly, you will lose out on that property. I had to lose a bunch of properties before I got my ass kicked into gear, and I said, all right, I'm gonna do this a lot quicker now. I'm gonna call the agent as soon as I see one that works. Second thing, a third thing is that you need to make sure that they have property managers and contractors. Someone who's an investor-friendly agent works with these kinds of people all the time and understands what you're trying to do. So they have contacts for these people. That's a great sign. Or they actually work with them like right now with another investor. That'd be another great sign that they're a good investor-friendly agent. And then the last thing is that they understand what it's like to work with someone out of state. For example, I'm looking at 3 properties right now that are on the market in Akron, Ohio. And I texted my real estate agent a couple hours ago and I said, hey, I'd like to go see these properties. And she knows what I mean by go see these properties. I'm not going to fly to Akron, Ohio. She's going to turn on FaceTime on her phone at 4 p.m. tomorrow, and we're going to look at the properties, right? That's how it works. So you need to have someone that's comfortable with recording videos for you of properties. You need to have someone that's comfortable with going on Zoom or going on FaceTime to be able to show you the properties. Okay. So where do you actually find these people? You can go to Zillow's best agents. So go to Google and type in Zillow's best agents for any city that you want to invest in. And Zillow has their own list of their highest rated agents in that area. Now, some of those are going to be home buying agents and home selling agents, not investor friendly ones. But they have keywords in their bio that you can look for, like investor or landlord or property management. These are the types of people that you want to start reaching out to. Bigger Pockets. How many of you have heard of Bigger Pockets before? Okay. For those of you that don't have Bigger Pockets account, I highly recommend you make a Bigger Pockets account. It's basically a real estate investing forum where a lot of real estate investors go, and you could ask questions to people. And they have agents that they work with in different markets that you could also look up under their networking tab. So once you have an account, you can go on there, you can search your name. You could search your city that you're looking in, and you could read people's bios to see which ones are real estate agents or not. And then lastly, social media. There's agents that are posting on social media. If someone is posting on social media, that means they really care about their job, probably. And they're not just like a part-time real estate agent, or they, they're hungry. And that's a really good sign for someone that you want to work with as a real estate agent, because they're going to be hungry to work for you. And when you call them, you're going to tell them that you're an investor. You're going to tell them what you're looking for. I'm looking to buy a rental property, a multifamily, a small multifamily, a single family home, and tell them that you have a pre-approval letter and send it to them afterwards. A few questions that you would actually ask them are, have you worked with investors before? Have you worked with anyone out of state before? Are you okay with doing FaceTime and Zoom for properties? And are you okay with setting up an automated listing for me for the properties in my criteria? So let's say you only got approved up to 150K. That's totally okay. Tell her or him to send you properties for 150K or less to your inbox in these zip codes or in this area or in the entire city as a whole. This way you can start looking at properties every single day and analyzing them. And the truth is, you might not find the first agent when you call them. A lot of them are going to not pick up. You're going to realize that a lot of them don't do, like, real estate agent was their part-time thing and they're not doing it anymore. And that's okay. It's going to take time to find the right person. And just because you start working with one doesn't mean you're stuck with that one. Okay. I think in Austin specifically, I've had like 3 or 4 real estate agents over the time that I've been here that I've worked with, because some phased out, some, moved on to different types of niches that they were working with and they weren't the best anymore. And I had a really good one in Little Rock, and then he just fell off the face of the earth. And so now I need to find a new one, right? That happens. We were literally in the middle of working together on a deal on the phone every single day. And then he just stopped picking up my calls. I had to call his broker's office like 3 months later because I was actually concerned for his livelihood. I was like, is he alive? And she was like, yeah, he's going through some stuff. He takes some time off from work. I was like, you could have just let me know that, right? So those things will happen. Just understand that it's all part of the process and you may have to run through a few of them. So your goal is to find one that responds quickly, understands the numbers, what you're looking for, acts quick, and is responsive. All right. Will asks, are all the properties you purchase on the market, or do you focus on off-market properties? Will, most of the properties I buy are on the market, because if I focus on the right cities that don't have the crazy competition like the Phoenix or the Austins or the Miamis of the world, then you have a lot less competition and you can find properties on the market that cash flow without you having to work so hard for an off-market deal. You can work a lot more hours to get an off-market deal and get a better deal that way. But I don't have that much time in the day to do all that. I tried doing some of it. It's a lot of work. I'm not going to lie. So if you do get some of that, you can partner with the wholesaler. But even then, a lot of the wholesalers over the last 2 years have just been raising their prices a lot. Nicole, is it better to invest in condominiums due to assistance with outside maintenance? Nicole, it's really up to you. The other thing is that fee, the HOA fee, is going to be there regardless, and they could raise it on you for however long you want. So it's up to you if you like the control of being able to make the fixes when you want to make the fixes, or if you like the passiveness of letting someone else take care of all the outside fixes. Just know that then that cost is out of your control. All right. Step 4 is to look at and analyze properties online. Okay. So like I said earlier, you're going to have the real estate agent send you a list of properties that they think is good. Okay. You're going to look at them and you're going to analyze them. Now, analyzing is a whole other hour, 2-hour talk, but the basics of it is this: you take the rent and you subtract all the expenses, the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the property management, the utilities, meaning the lawn, the electric, the what else? Heat, whatever you have to pay, sewer, water. And then I save 5 to 12% of the monthly rent for repairs every single month, another 5 to 12% for vacancies, and then another, or sorry, not 5 to 12, 5 to 10 for vacancies, and then 5 to 12 for capital expenditures. And so if after all of that, the property makes me about 150 per unit per month and at least an 8% ROI, I think for a beginner, that is a good base hit. It's not an amazing deal. It's a good start. Ideally, we'd like to make more than that, but it's better to get in the game than it is to be on the sidelines getting hit with inflation while also trying to find a property that's a home run, and then you never get started, and then maybe years go by before you actually do.
Hey, and that's a really great point. I just wanted to jump in. Antonio, you're talking about doing this on properties that are less than $100,000, or for sure less than 200, 150, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, all the properties I bought that are investment properties were all less than 200. The last one I bought was 95K. And it was a triplex.
I really wanted to make that point. Like, it doesn't take a whole lot of money to get in the game, which is amazing.
Yeah, you have to put 25% down on that. So 25% on 95, I think with closing costs and everything was 23,000. Or no, I only had to put 20% on that one. So yeah, it's not that much money. And if I were to live there and I house hacked it, I could have put like $4,000 or $5,000 down, right? And got started that way. I could have even done less and, you know, done some sort of grant to cover my down payment too. But realistically, this is totally doable. Excuse me, totally doable on properties that are pretty cheap. It's just a matter of the location research process. All right. So once you've seen the properties online, you're going to give a list of the ones that you like that gave you a profit. Like I said, to the real estate agent, say, let's see these. That's exactly what I was just telling you. What I just did with my agent today is what you have to do. And you have to schedule time to go see it via FaceTime or video. Or if you'd like, and I've had some people do this, they fly out to the area and go there for a weekend and see all the properties they wanted to, so you can feel more comfortable about being in the area and meet these people in person. That's totally doable. For an investment of a couple $100 to maybe $1,000, for something that you're going to be investing tens and 30s and 40s of 50s of thousands of dollars in this area, it might make sense for you to do that for a weekend to get more comfortable. Whatever you need to do to feel more comfortable is what you need to do. Okay. So when you're going to go look at the properties, you want to come to the property with some assumptions. Okay. So when you're looking at a property on Zillow, you're going to notice that the paragraph and the pictures will give some information, but there might be some information missing. So you want to jot those questions you had down. And as you go look at the property, you want to get those questions answered. It's like playing a mystery game sometimes where you have some clues and you're trying to figure out the rest of the clues. So, and take notes of things that maybe is different than what the pictures highlighted. You see something that's broken or needs to get updated that wasn't in the pictures before. You jot that down. Now, there's 3 things that you need to do if you're doing this out of state that you can't do in person, okay? You can't smell, right? So ask the real estate agent, are there any weird smells about the property? Because if there are, that means there could be some form of infestation, some water issues, some pest issues. So that's one thing. The second thing is ask them to FaceTime and show you the streets leading up to the property so you can get a good sense of the area that you're investing in. And then the last thing is about the foundation, right? You can't feel the foundation. You can't feel the ground. That's something that you need to experience when you're there. And so you want to make sure that the real estate agent checks that for you. Okay. Once you've done that, you want to come back with all your assumptions and rerun the numbers. Okay. You update your calculations based on what you have. Oh, there was an extra bedroom. That means I could charge an extra $200 in rent. That might be something you realize. One property that I had under contract was a single family house that I actually, after seeing it, was a 5-unit property. That changes how much the rent will be by a lot. So I had to go back and rerun the numbers. Calculate everything, calculate the cash on cash return and the ROI. And I have plenty of videos on how to do all of that. And then ask yourself, does this meet my requirements at the asking price? So if the asking price is $100,000, you say, does this meet my what I want in terms of profit and what I want in terms of return on investment at the asking price? Okay. If it does not, you might have to see what it's like if you offer lower. Because if you offer lower, your mortgage will be lower, your expenses will be lower, and therefore your profit will be higher. So it's really about just playing with the different numbers in the formula. Ooh, what if I could find a way to rent the house for $100 more a month? What does that do? Right? This is my favorite part of the whole thing. Is it's like I get to be creative about how I can take the house and turn it into something better. Ooh, if I rent out the basement for storage, I might be able to get an extra $100 a month. And so you find ways to make something more profitable just by sitting there and being creative and looking at the numbers. Now, I'm not saying to make up an extra bedroom in the house, but if there's extra space that's not being used and you can convert that into a bedroom, that's what you do. Okay. And you need to understand where your lowest point is. And by lowest point, I really mean the highest number you can offer. Because once you get past that, if you go past that and you don't make as much money as you want, or sometimes you lose money on it, there's no going back. No one can save you from buying a bad deal other than you having to sell it. And then you've probably still lost money in the scenario. Okay. I see a few questions in the chat. Fixer uppers are move-in ready at that price range. CJ Sizzle, for that 95K property specifically, I think there's tenants already living in there. We did not kick them out or anything. We spent $16,000 to fix the roof and some siding issues. So all external, nothing internal. So you look at it how you want. That's technically a fixer upper, but also move-in ready at the same time because they were living there and we never got them out. Every other property I've bought except one had tenants in them already. So out of the 7 that I have, only one had tenants in there already.
I think
only one didn't have tenants. So I bought most of my properties with tenants already at those price ranges. Now they're not like beautiful, like, properties with granite countertops. They're properties that are in C-class areas, as what you would imagine that would be like. Will, you're about to say something? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, one of the questions on that, dude, I lost it. I thought I had it. I had it, and then I lost it.
When it comes back, come back. Nicole says, how do you feel about a variable credit line on your house to pay for another property? That's totally cool, Nicole. But what you need to do is make sure that you calculate that cost as a cost on the new property as well. So the income you make from the second property needs to be able to cover that cost plus the cost of that property itself. So the cost of the variable line of credit plus the cost of the first property. So it's got to cash flow more, unfortunately. All right. Okay, so step 7, once you ran the numbers and you're like, all right, this property works, you got to make an offer. And this is scary for a lot of people, especially if you haven't bought a house before, like I hadn't. It really is tough, but you have to trust in your numbers. You can double check them. You could triple check them, run them by your agent, run them by another investor friend or someone that you've met online. There's 2 parts to this whole thing, is really the offer number, like what the price is, and the contingencies that are involved in this. Okay. So the first part is the numbers. This is the price that you're going to buy the house at. There's 3 things that really matter when it comes to the offer price. Is 1, does the house give you cash flow for what you're looking for at that home price? Okay. If so, you've checked that box. If not, don't offer. Or lower your offer. Second thing is it in range for what they're asking for? Meaning, if someone puts a house on the market for $200K, I highly doubt they're going to accept a $100,000 offer. They might accept a $180,000 offer, but once they've anchored themselves to that price, you might just say, forget about it. And it's not worth to put in that low ball of an offer. I'm not saying to never lowball. I'm just saying it's all about in relation to the original price that they set. Okay. And then the last thing is it at a price point you can afford? Okay. Because, if you're pre-approved only up to 100,000 and you make an offer on a house on 150, guess what? The bank's not just going to give you the money just because you decided to offer on a house more. You need to come up with that cash. So, don't waste anyone's time if you're not actually capable of buying a property that expensively, or if you can't get the cash outside. And the second part is the contingencies. Contingencies are things in the contract that really protect you or sometimes the seller for something happening along the way to make sure that you're getting what you want in this whole deal. So an example would be a financing contingency. When you buy a house with a mortgage, that is considered a financing contingency, meaning your offer is okay as long as you can get a mortgage. Okay. And if you have that there and for some reason you can't get a mortgage, you're legally allowed to back out. Okay. But if you don't have that there and you don't get a mortgage for some reason, like the week before because you lost your job or something, guess what? You're still legally responsible to buy the house. Okay, so a contingency like that is there to protect you. An inspection contingency is one that that allows you to get an inspection before actually going to the house. That's really important. One that I really think you should all keep in there, especially for your first property. Now, a few other ones that I've done before is I've done a security deposit one where I've asked them to collect security deposits from the tenants. Another one is I've asked them to raise the rent on the tenants to where I was happy with it. This way I bought it cash flowing on day one. But that was, both of those were in scenarios where the seller needed to sell a lot more. So you'll get away with more by doing that. The cool part about contingencies is that you can add contingencies in if, let's say, the price is something that's really important to the seller. Like if the seller needs $200K because they need it for another house, they won't be able to really go a lot lower than $200K. But you may be able to say, hey, raise the rent on the tenants for me, which works better for you, but it works good for them. So they're willing to accept it. It's all about sticking things in there that don't really bother them, but help you out a lot. Okay. This way you can get your offer accepted. This is a whole like tough thing to go a high level on, but that's really the high level of an offer. Is it anyone? Please keep putting your questions in the chat. I'm trying to answer as many as I can. Darren, after 16K improvements, did it up your equity in that property? And did you ever use the equity to buy more properties? Darren, no, we haven't used the equity in that one yet. The main reason is because I would instantly be increasing my rate by 2% right now for maybe 10K. And I don't have a really good deal flow set up right now from the properties that I have. I have plenty of cash to buy something right now. That's not my problem. When it becomes my problem, I will be tapping that equity for more value though. And Donald said, buying a property, making money for someone else at a discount, maybe. I'm curious why rentals sell. What do you mean by why rentals sell?
I think when he's talking about when you buy a house, a rental property that's already cash flowing, why would they sell?
Oh, why would they sell? I had the same question when I was starting out. So turns out that some investors will graduate from like, they'll buy properties that are cheaper and later on they want to consolidate them. So they'll sell them, cash out and buy a bigger like apartment complex or something. Or they'll take their money and move it into a different market. Like maybe they had a couple houses in this market and a couple houses in this market, and they're trying to consolidate in one or move it all to another one. Or they only have like 2 or 3 properties and they're not a good manager and they're trying to get rid of them. And they don't want to deal with the work, right? That's another reason to get out. I used to think the same thing. I was like, why are you just going to give me this cash flowing property? Like you're going to hand me this asset? That makes no sense. But that's unfortunately, sometimes people do that. Cool. All right. So negotiations happen afterwards. You made the offer. Now you go back and forth. They're either going to accept, reject, or negotiate. And it might take a few rounds, but you may have to change some contingencies, change your offer price. And if you go through, it'll get accepted. Now you're in what's known as attorney review period or an option period. This varies state by state. So I'm going to try to give you based off of all the experience that I've had and what it's like to buy in different areas. So you have as much of a comprehensive view over this whole thing. And there's a few parts that happen in this stage. So I'm trying to consolidate it all. So if you are in a state that requires attorney review, then you will have to get a lawyer for this portion. And if that's the case, like in New Jersey, for me, it was the case, I had to get a lawyer. And basically the lawyer scraps the entire offer that I wrote and rewrites the offer in legal terms. To give you an example, a lot of people will offer as is, but technically there's no legal term for what as is means. So once I've gotten the offer accepted, it's then up to the lawyer and I to determine what as is means. And for me, as is might means I'm willing to accept the property as long as there are no, like I can't say no to something for being old, but if something's defective, I'm allowed to say no on and I'm allowed to renegotiate, right? That's more clear and specific than what as is means. So that's just an example. They scrap that, and within 3 days, that has to be sent out to the other party's agent and lawyer. Once that happens, they'll go back and forth and there's all these negotiations again until you get that solidified. Now, if you're not in a state that has attorney review, there's this other period called an option period. Okay. This tends to be about a week or 2 weeks-ish, depending on what you set it to be in the contract. The shorter the period, the better your chances of getting your offer accepted. And this is like a period for you to have the option to buy or to not buy. Okay. So this period is really important because the cost, there'll usually be a fee for the option period if you back out. So if you back out, maybe it'll be like $300. Okay. Right. To lose $300 to not buy a bad deal is a great deal. Okay. So it's okay to lose the $300 on scenarios like this. I know $300 is a lot of money and we shouldn't be acting like it's not, but $300 is worth it because if you buy the property, even though you know it's not a good one, it's a bad scenario for you. So in the option period, you typically want to do first a home inspection. Okay. Immediately, as soon as the property's bought, you want to talk to your agent and get an inspector to go in that property as soon as possible within the option period. This way you have enough time to read the report that they give you. The inspector will go in, look to see what's wrong with it. They're going to give you like a 75-page packet on all the things that are wrong with your property. You're going to freak out and be like, why did I buy this thing? There's so many headaches. Just realize that's part of the process. Their job is to basically point out every damn thing that is somewhat not perfect with the property. Okay. Really what you need to do is look at it from like a third party's perspective and just say, okay, how much are these things going to cost me? And is this really a big deal? Okay. You can talk it over with your agent or your real estate lawyer to see what you think you should do. Sometimes you can take the things from the inspection and say, hey, we found the foundation was off. I want $10,000 off the home price to save. So this way I can use it for a better foundation. And then you'll go back and negotiate. So throughout this entire process, there's going to be mini negotiations that go on based off of the things you find. Okay. So an inspection is really important. It'll cost somewhere around like $350, probably at the low end to like $700. Depending on what state you're in and how expensive those things are for you. Now, at this point, you might be able to back out of the contract. If you find something that you really like, I can't deal with the foundation issue. That's too much work for me. You back out. That's totally cool. You lose the option money. You go to another one. Okay. Don't be afraid to back out. It's better to back out. Next thing is to get a contractor. Okay. The contractor is going to give you a quote. You want someone who's experienced, someone who's got knowledge in their expertise, hopefully someone who has pictures or videos of the work that they've done so you could see that they actually do a good job and they do a thorough job, okay? If your real estate agent has a really good one, this is someone that I highly recommend you trust to start off because so far I haven't had a bad experience, not a bad experience, but I haven't had any really negative experiences from the contractors that I've worked with through my referrals from the real estate agent. That's why the real estate agent's a really important person to work with from the start. You want them to give you quotes for labor and material. Ideally, a lot of them are going to give you a pain in the ass about that because then it shows how much they're charging for labor. But that's the best way to compare two different people, two different contractors together. But your goal is to go in there and say, hey, here's the inspection report. Tell me how much it costs to fix these things up. So I know for certain if I spend this money, one, how much will the home price be afterwards? But two, is it worth it for me? If I have to put an extra $20,000 in, does that hurt my return on investment so much that it doesn't make sense for me to buy this anymore? That might be a thing you look at. All right. So you want a contractor in there. Few ways other than your real estate agent would be some Googling, home advisor, your property management company. If you haven't had one yet at this point, you can reach out to one and get one through them because they all need contractors to work with to fix up their rentals. You can ask people nearby who have gotten things done. If you do happen to live by the property and like I said, your agent. And I talked about this, but reviews, pictures, make sure you question them on their quote, see what other people's work that they've done and ask those people if you can. that'd be a really great way to be able to determine and do some legwork up front to remove a lot of the bad contractors out there. Okay. And the last part of this period is to call up the lender and update them and tell them, hey, I got this house under contract for $195,000. It's this address. They're going to ask you to fill out a few documents to really kick off the process for buying the house. Okay. And this is where shit gets real. They start looking at all of your real financials and they're like, all right, can this person really afford the house? Because this is what it comes down to in the end. All right. You don't want to stall on this portion, because if you do, you will not be able to actually get a loan for a house, or you may have to push closing off, which may make the seller angry, and you don't want the seller to be angry. You want the seller to be happy. Okay. Donald said, maybe off subject, any way to use current equity in homes without conventional bank? Sorry, maybe another lesson. Is it a primary home or investment? 4. 1 property, 3 what's? 3 rentals. Oh, okay. You want to get equity out of your rentals? Yeah, you can do it. You can do cash out refinance without using a conventional bank. I've done it already. Yeah, debt service coverage ratio lender. I believe I sent you Lima One Capital. Kiavi does it, and so does Lima One Capital, Kiavi, and so do Finance of America. They all do cash out refinances on homes that are investments. They don't do HELOCs, but they'll do cash out refinance on a home. Yeah. Okay. So once you've accepted that you're going to keep the house, you enter step 10, which is time to send over what's known as a good faith or an earnest deposit. This basically is money that shows that, hey, I am serious about buying this house. Okay. Take my money, and you're going to give some extra money that goes to your down payment and your closing costs. You'll send it to the lawyer or the title company, and they'll have it. Now, if you back out illegally, the seller can now take this money and you never see it again. This is what you don't want to lose. This is why you build the contingencies in the contract. If you do back out legally, then you get the money back. It's not yours to keep. Or if the seller cancels the contract, you get the money back. All right. Now, at this point, the mortgage company will go ahead and get an appraisal for you. Since a lot of you already own a house, you should know what an appraisal is. But they basically look at your house and compare it to all the other houses in the neighborhood and say, this is how much your house is worth because all of those houses sold for this amount. Okay. Now, this part's really important because the banks are doing this to make sure that they're not over lending on your home. So just because you offered $100,000 on the house, it doesn't mean that it's actually worth $100,000. And if the bank says that it's actually worth less than $100,000, then you will have to come to the closing table with the price difference between the $100,000 and what you're paying. Okay. So let's give an example. Let's say you offered on a house that's $100,000. That's really worth $100,000, but you offered $110,000. Your offer got accepted because your offer was the best. The bank goes ahead and does their appraisal and they say, this house is only worth $110,000. You need to put 25, your house is only worth 100. Sorry. That means you need to put 25% of 100,000, which is 25,000, plus the difference between what you offered and what the bank will loan on, which is another 10,000. So that will increase your down payment by $10,000. So this is why it's really important, again, to not over offer on houses too, which you should never be doing. But if you do, this is the cost of what happens. You'll have to come to the table with more money. Now, once you've gotten this and you know how much the house is worth, you can then go ahead and get insurance, home insurance or flood insurance. If you got flood insurance, that sucks because it's an extra cost on the property, unfortunately, but it's part of doing business in some areas. You need this in order to close on a mortgage. They won't allow you to do it. If you buy a property with cash, you'll be okay, but they'll look at you weird if you don't get the insurance. That's for sure. They're like, you own the house without insurance. I did that accidentally. I closed a property with cash and then I forgot to get insurance. And a week later, I tried to get insurance and they're like, technically, like we have to like redo an inspection on the house. I was like, dude, it's been 1 week. Like, come on. And they're like, all right, fine, we'll let it go. But they were going to have to do a whole nother inspection. I was like, that's ridiculous. Yeah, you're going to have to pay the insurance as far as all of you know, either upfront or you're going to pay a little bit every single month, part of your escrow and your mortgage. This should be pretty basic for all of you. All right. Nicole asks, what is the best way to refinance your current property to get another one? Nicole, I'm not really sure what that means. Refinancing is if you could, can you unmute and try to explain what do you mean by the best way? Or type in the chat if you can't unmute. It's all good too.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Hi. Yeah,
Hey.
thank you for answering my question. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Yeah, so I was just wondering, would it be best to do like, you know, kind of a credit line or, you know, a credit or a loan, a refinance loan on the house? You know, there's different types of ways you can refinance your house. So for me, I have the property that I live in, and I have a lot of equity in my property. So I'm just wondering if I should use that equity to purchase another property.
Okay, so you're basically asking, should I use a line of credit or should I use a refinance?
Yeah, or my, you know, I'm debating like, should I take a loan by 401k? Like I'm debating the best way to do it. It's probably, you know, just for like tax purposes and things like that.
I think you could take a hardship loan on your 401k as well. I'm not the best person to consult tax purposes behind it. I do know that obviously you'll get to deduct mortgage interest up to a certain amount. So that is a pro of doing the refinance and not the 401k loan. I don't know if there's any tax benefits of the 401k loan. I think you have to pay it back after 3 years, right?
Well,
but-
I have a 401k that I can actually take money out of completely. I don't need to take a loan. It's just an account that's sitting there.
And you don't have to pay any interest on that money?
Well, I have to pay penalties if I take the money out because I'm under 59 and a half. So
Okay,
I just
so
don't think that would probably be the best option.
Yeah. So if you know you're going to buy a property within like a certain time frame, like a couple of months, I would do a refinance so you have all the cash up front. Okay.
Yeah, so I have an open credit line on my house now. It's just it's a variable rate. So I'm just concerned about the rates we're probably going to be doing, you know, and I don't know, like, so say the rates go up to 8%, it's still worth it to take that money and put it on a property. Because I know you have to factor that into your cash flow, right?
Yeah, that is going to be a cost. So if the interest rate goes up, it's going to be a cost for you. Donald said it best, but basically it's like we have to analyze the cost of all three of these and try to figure out which one is the highest and try to minimize and pick the one that is going to be the lowest cost. The only advantage of the HELOC is that you don't have to pay any of the money up front. Like, for example, if I did a cash out refi today on a house, I would basically just be sitting and having to pay the mortgage until I close on another house. And so if I don't have a deal that I'm ready to close on, and sometimes that timing is really hard to get time down because you may have a deal that you think you're going to close on and then it goes away and falls out of contract. So the HELOC has that advantage where you can basically have it ready to go. And when you're ready to close, you pull the money out and and you have it, but then you have the variable rate. That's the con of that. The HELOC is the refinance is good because you know the rate, and then theoretically you can refinance in 2 years if the rates go down by then. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that I know what the Fed is going to do at this point. But so I would analyze it, assuming that the HELOC is going to go up in a rate. Okay. Whatever you can get, whatever you're getting today, I would assume at least 2% higher. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
At least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Hey, and Nicole, if you want to, feel free to message me on the circle group or whatever, and we'll do like a case study and I'll walk you through how I would analyze where do I get my money from to buy the property. And we're just going to rate.
I would love that.
Awesome. So just message me and we'll do it as a case study for the group. I think it'd be great to learn.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. That was a really good question. So the next step is to get a property manager. As the property's getting ready to close, you want to make sure you have property managers on deck to go to this way. You can get that property rented ASAP because we want to start making our money back as soon as we put it in, right? So property managers cost on average 6 to 15% of the monthly rent. Typically it's 8 to 12, but I've seen as high and as low as those two numbers. And then they'll also take around 40 to 100% of the first month's rent, okay? So when you're running the rent, assume 1/12 less because 1/12 is going out the window to the property management company. And then they will also likely take a fee when you're doing work to manage the property. Some have had this, some have not. So I can't tell you like for sure that'll be a cost, but it'll all be based off of which property management company you use. In my opinion, it's better for me to spend time doing what I'm doing full time rather than being a landlord full time. If I can focus on buying more properties, I can grow my net worth. But if I'm just sitting here focusing on dealing with all of my tenants' issues, then what's the point? My girlfriend's mom lives in California. She has all of her rentals in Texas. Okay. She flies to Texas to collect rent sometimes. She had me and my girlfriend go pick up rent from a tenant that decided to move out. I'm like, I don't even do this for my own properties. You're going to make me do it for yours, right? But she's the type of person that thinks it's better to save 10% and spend the time and the headaches that she has to deal with tenants. That's up to you. That's a decision for you. I've made the decision for myself. And if you like time, if you're looking for freedom, which if you follow Will, I'm assuming you're looking for freedom, right? This is the best way to do it. Get a property management company, please. Now, not all of them are the best. That is 100% the fact. But what you should do is we should make sure that you get them from trustable sources. So real estate agents, other investors, online Google reviews. That's a great way to tell how good or how bad they are, because you'll get people from their tenants and from the landlords. Because in this business, by the way, tenants are really our customers. So if our customers aren't happy, then what's the point of using that company, right? Also, Bigger Pockets as property management companies. That's another thing. And if you're in the area, you can call the For Rent signs and see which property management companies are also running that way. And then you call them and you basically ask them what their costs are, what their experiences are, how many units do they manage, and you'll be able to tell, is this a small mom and pop thing, or is this something that they got systems and stuff built out? And I can tell you that the first property management company that I've worked with in Akron, not the best. Okay. They originally seemed better, but they're not the best. I'm now testing a second one with my another property. They charge 1% more every single month. So they charge 11 versus 10, but they don't charge 10% every single time things are fixed up. And it's been super hands off. I haven't had to worry about a single thing for that property since I bought it. Whereas the other one, I've had to follow up with them all the time. It's a pain in the ass. You don't want that. Okay. You want someone who's going to make this offhand, and you don't have to sit and think, oh, shoot, what about that thing we were supposed to fix in that one property, right? This gets significantly worse the more properties you add to your plate. Okay, not fun. Okay, so another thing is that there's going to be a leap of trust when you're doing this for the first time. You're going to be scared and nervous to work with a property management company up front, but you'll never really know until you try them. So we can only do our best by trying to look at the reviews that they have online, any testimonials they have, and call them and speak to them. You'd be surprised how many even pick up the phone. Okay. So you want one that obviously picks up the phone and does all these things. Okay. And if you don't want to do it, you can use some of these other options like Hemlane. They have like a cheaper software ticketed system where you're technically the landlord, but they have a team of people in different markets that you could work with. I haven't tested it. I have a friend that has tested it, and they use it for their property in Austin, and he lives in Portugal. So, and it's worked for him. Or you could do what my girlfriend's mom does, and she self-manages remotely, flies in once a month, and has a handyman there. All right, I'm going to try to blaze through some of this because I didn't realize we were almost at time. CO inspection. This is only for some states, but this is certificate certificate of occupancy. This is when the town basically says, can you live there or not? You will have to get this done if you live in a state with some COs, like New Jersey has one, others don't, that I've invested in. And then it's time for closing day. You get a notary will come to your house because you'll be doing this remotely. You'll sign all the piece of paper for your life to sign away to this mortgage, and you'll wire the money to the title company. They'll tell you exactly how much you need, and you'll be good to go. Then, if your house needs work to get done, get the work done as soon as possible. Like, as soon as the house is yours, get the contractor there as soon as you possibly can. Because again, time is money. You don't want to just be sitting on a vacant property because that's just cost to you. And things will come up that'll make timelines slower. Okay. And I always have an agent or property manager to check in on them while the work is getting done. They'll send me pictures, they'll send me videos and updates over time, because both of them are invested in your success. If the property doesn't get rented, then guess what? Your agent is you're not going to buy another property with that agent because you've had a bad experience in the area. The property manager is not going to get any money because they haven't gotten anyone to rent the property. So they're both tied to your success. So use them, not in like a negative way, but use them to help you with the scenario. Then get it rented. They'll start putting it on different websites and stuff to get it rented. And the leases, not the leases, the applicants will come in. They'll review applicants with you, depending on the property management company or if you care or not. You'll tell them if you want Section 8 or not. This is when the Section 8 stuff comes in. You'll tell them if you want pets or not, or what things you are okay with. Some states, you need to be aware of the discrimination laws, because in some states you are allowed to discriminate based off of certain things. Like in New Jersey, for example, I cannot discriminate if someone is collecting money off of unemployment versus actually earning money from a job. If two people are making $70,000 a year, one's making it from the government and one is not, I can't discriminate. In Arkansas, I can do whatever the hell I want, right? I like that decision because I think someone who's not working means something about their character. That's just my opinion. You're allowed to have your own opinion. What you definitely can't do is discriminate by race. You can't discriminate by sex. You can't discriminate by sexual orientation, any of those. Those are out of question, okay? But there's certain things that you need to make sure you check with your state laws by talking to your property manager, what things you're allowed to say no to and what things you aren't. Some states you can't discriminate by crimes either, or past evictions, which is crazy. So you need to watch out for that. And then the last step is to get an accountant. You need a CPA to help you with all of this, to make sure that you are deducting every single dollar, because none of us want to give any more government money to the government, because Lord knows they do not know what they're doing with it. And if you don't have one, you could find one on Bigger Pockets, network within your circles. And I'm sure a lot of you who are on here, you know that you need a CPA already, because Will's probably drained it down your throats. You check out 1-800-ACCOUNTANT, whatever you want. And that's it. If you want to find more of me, you got TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I have my Ultimate Beginner Resource Guide, which has a link to all my favorite books, YouTube videos, and software tools that I use, and then my book as well. All right, let me try to catch up on the comments real quick. I really enjoy when you show the expected costs like property managers. You got it. If there's any other ones that you think I missed, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. And then Donald said, I'm risk averse. How to find deals with another to reduce some risk? Any advice? What do you mean with another, like another person? Oh, did we lose him altogether? You're on mute.
Hold on, Don. Hold on, Don. You have to unmute yourself. Can you unmute?
I tried. I mean,
There we go.
I'd like to get into this. I have equity, et cetera, but I don't want to just put all my money in all by myself. If there's somebody that can mentor me, I can work with. Is there any advice on that? I mean, I'm just kind of.
You want to invest with someone else who has experience.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's people out there that offer that. The only coming from someone who was thinking about doing that, right? The only advantage to me to working with someone who has less experience would be if I had no capital to buy the property. And I saw something long-term with us working together, because starting a partnership is a pain in the ass. Okay. You need new credit cards. You need new bank accounts. You need to file a new K-1 every single year. You need to make sure that you have an operating agreement, and all of those headaches are not worth it for one property or two properties, right? They start to become worth it for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 properties. So if you're in it for the long term, that makes sense. But if you just want to work with someone to kind of learn from them, have them do a lot of the work and put in money, and then you leave after, one or two properties, then it doesn't really make sense, right? Because then I have to do, someone like me would have to do all this upfront work to not get the long-term results, right? Just coming from my perspective. I don't know someone specifically though that I can send you to, unfortunately. Yeah, but if you keep bothering me over time and I find someone, don't worry, I'll send someone your way. Anyone have any other questions?
No, I think that's good, man. Dude, Antonio,
Did I overwhelm you all? Is that why you have no questions? Did I just talk too much?
Let me see. I think there's yeah, y'all feel free to unmute. If you need help unmuting, let me know. But no, this was awesome. This was really good. So one of the things that Antonio was leading up to, and you saw in the very beginning with the landlord-friendly states, like if you pay attention to what he was talking about, in Jersey, he had somebody there from 2020 all the way to almost 2023, and they paid and then didn't pay and then paid and then didn't pay, off and on, where he knows now, hindsight tells him, because he accumulated all that money he did not earn, hindsight tells him, don't buy in Jersey.
$11,000, just so.
Oh, man. So that's an $11,000 lesson. Just that one map he showed, landlord-friendly states. And then when he said, Arkansas, I can do what the hell I want. That sounds like Arkansas, right? Like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So just knowing that one piece could save you 11 grand. So anyway, there's a ton of stuff that he covered in here, but it was amazing. I'm going to put a link in the membership area to his book. He's got a book on Amazon. I'll throw the link down here in the chat too. It's the Beginner's Real Estate Playbook. It's piece by piece, play by play, exactly what you need to do the entire analysis. It's amazing. So I highly recommend you get that if you want to do this kind of game, real estate, out of state, and learn how to do that, because he's doing it. He's leading from the front, and he's gone through a lot of stuff. So was this good for y'all guys? Was this helpful? Learn a lot? Awesome. Awesome. Well, Antonio, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you, and I will see you tomorrow and also at your Halloween party on Friday, man.
Yes. All right. See you guys.
Okay, everybody, y'all take care. Have a good night.
Bye.